Thank you very much for being here with us at the very first edition of the Explorers Festival. I hope you're enjoying it so far.
It's been great.
So you had a workshop you just finished on the cultural aspects of design thinking. So
Right.
can you tell us a bit more about that?
It's information that we've developed. My wife and I, we teach a class at the Institute of Design on transcultural design. And so it's information we've gathered through books and TED Talks that we think is really important. We had lived in Singapore for 3 years, and there really opened our eyes to the fact that as designers, we don't always understand the cultures we live in. And so when we came back to the States, we wanted to still bring that information with us and start this search of what resources are out there that help people understand and help us as designers understand how to design across cultures. And it's been really a popular class at the Institute of Design because I think people realize it's timely, and we're designing more and more across cultures. A passport is required for a lot more work we do, and so not knowing these nuances can really stop a project or a product or a service or a business from moving ahead if you miss some clues, some vital clues, in another culture that is other than your own.
What kind of different cultures have you explored, and how has that fueled your creativity? Why have you liked it?
I think the biggest one was moving to Singapore and living in Singapore for 3 years. We were able to travel throughout Southeast Asia into Japan, China. We went down to Cambodia and Vietnam, and it's really amazing just to see that all these different cultures so closely packed together in Southeast Asia and Asia in general. But we've also taught in Monterrey, Mexico, so to have that type of culture. And I think what I took away from that is just how we can learn so much from a different point of view. When I was in Singapore at the Digital Creative Center, I did a research project on the Asian perspective of space. And that really just blew my mind of what space can be and how it's perceived in a different culture. Coming from a very Western culture, I went to Syracuse University. Space is something that is a void you create with walls and you contain it. And this Japanese sense of Ma or feng shui in China, their version of space is much more about relationships. It's about the distance between you and me. It's comedic timing. So their idea of space is actually time and distance together. And so from an architect and from a designer, that just blew my mind that where I'm used to and was trained to control the space, here was a version of space, a perception of space that was all about relationship and experiences. And if you get the experience right, if you focus on creating that, suddenly the container isn't as important. And just allowing that different mindset, a different shift really allowed me to view what I do as a designer in a totally different way.
And how do you apply practically this, the knowledge that you gain? How do you apply this concept of Ma?
So Ma is time and space, and so it's really focusing on the relationship and the activity that's going on. And so first, as an architect and designer, I think about what it is, what type of experience you want to create. So sort of us sitting around this table, it's really about the conversation that we're having, and how do we actually create the best environment for that, and then come the walls that surround it and the light that surround it, all in the service of that experience. I draw this diagram out to show these differences. Typically, as I was trained, just like we created a design, we learned how to stand up and we opened the door and hope people enjoyed it. That's when we actually find out if it's successful. But with Ma and this different approach to space is actually you start with the people, then you surround it with the concept, with the design, and then you realize how it needs to stand up, the structure behind it. And in all three of those moments, the person is still there. It's still about creating that activity. And I think that's where that type of perspective of space can come. And Ma is a wonderful, I just love this notion of Ma, and it's actually the gap that's more important. And there's a fantastic poem called The Uses of Not that talks about things not being there and how useful that is. And I think as designers, we often think we always need to add things to something to make it better. But I think Ma and this Uses of Not asks you, what could you actually take away that would improve something? What is something that's not there that actually could make your product so much better? And so I think it's just a different approach to design and another mindset to use as a tool.
You're talking about design, but design thinking is not only applied now in design itself, but also in business. How do you see this trend going?
It's everywhere. I mean, I think it's very, very successful way to think. And what it uses the process of design and abstraction to solve everyday problems. And so businesses have everyday problems. It's not just the product that we need to design, but it's how do you approach different markets and doing that in a creative way. And so design thinking is about abstraction, taking the parts and pieces, abstract them into their parts, and then looking at how you can recombine them in different ways to come down with a different element in the end, something that's more a different approach, a different way of doing things, and not just, we did this yesterday, so we're just going to slide over here. But it's really this abstraction process that helps you look at different opportunities, both from a cultural standpoint, but you can go to analogous situations. Who's doing something similar to this? I was talking to an architect the other day. He was a Marine in a submarine. And so for housing, you could look at these micro units. How was a submarine set up, and what could you apply that to housing? That's design thinking. That's using different approaches to solve problems, different ways outside industry, and transferring that knowledge.
And do you think you can also apply to your personal life, not only in businesses, but in the way you see everyday reality? Yeah,
I think you could do that from just a change of situation, a change of perception of if dealing with either the situations at work, sort of the world is full of opportunities to find a different viewpoint, an advantage. Pressure at work to get tasks done. Can you actually use design thinking to look at, well, what are the other elements that are creating that? What are the elements that my team members are looking at me, and where's that pressure coming from? So it allows you, design thinking allows you to sort of step out from your vantage point and look at it from a different approach and come up with a different perspective to view it from.
So what are some different perspectives that you're upon to explore in the future?
That's a good question. I think using this cultural element in honing your design dialect, I think is a really exciting area for myself and my wife as we sort of create this dialogue. Because I think, as you see, we had a lot of people in the workshop today, and I think people know it's timely and they want to have this conversation. And so I would love to be able to explore that further. What can we learn by bringing more cultures together? Or what can we learn by having this hybrid of the two? We talked about third culture kids. And these are this generation that is so mobile, and they're growing up in cultures all over the world, not just their family's cultures. And what's great about that is that they're coming with situations with solving problems from a hybrid approach. And that's where innovation can come from. It's combining different cultures and putting them together in something that we would never consider. So I think that's really kind of an exciting area to explore and to allow people to understand that's possible. It's really awareness that not only are there different cultures, but it can be used for innovation. It can be used for types of projects, but it also can be used just to make a better product and make it resonate in a particular culture.
Thank you very much for the interview.
Cool.
And
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed your exploration at the festival in the next days.
It's been great. Thank you.
Thank
you.
Thank you.